You might be learning mountain bike skills in the wrong order, and it's costing you months of progress. Here's the problem. How do you know if you're practicing the right skills? Sometimes a technique will look or feel cool, but actually have limited use on the trail. And sometimes you'll skip over something that seems boring, yet it comes in handy more often than you'd expect. Let me give you an example. Bunny hops are awesome, but when you come up on an obstacle in the trail, it's usually safer and easier to use a more consistent technique like a pedal up to ride up and over that obstacle. The other problem? YouTube shows you whatever looks coolest, not what you actually need to learn next. The algorithm doesn't know where you are in your journey, so it's just gonna recommend the flashiest tricks instead of the fundamentals that will unlock your riding. That's why I've collected and organized the most crucial skills you need to give you maximum control on your mountain bike. And here's what makes this different. I've arranged them in the correct order. This progression is going to make the whole process easier and faster because every skill builds on the previous one. You'll also develop a deeper understanding of each element in every skill, which means techniques will click faster and stick longer. By the end of this compilation, you'll have the complete toolkit to ride with confidence on any trail. This video is broken into segments with different chapters on the timeline listed out by specific technique. If you know how to do a skill, you're welcome to skip ahead, but I'd advise you to watch everything. My teaching style breaks out every skill into its most basic element, so you might pick up some new insights even if you can already do the technique. Before we dive into specific techniques, you need to understand the one concept that unlocks everything else: unweighting. Master this and every skill in this video becomes 10 times easier. Lifting and moving your bike has almost nothing to do with physical strength. It's entirely about where you're standing on the bike. See this area right here? It's called the bottom bracket, and it's essentially the center of gravity on your bike. Stand in front of it and the back end comes up easier. Stand behind it and the front wheel lifts with less effort. That's it. That's the secret. Let's practice with 3 quick front wheel drills. For the first one, roll along slowly and quickly shift your hips away from the handlebars to bring your front wheel off the ground. For the next drill, try holding the front wheel off the ground a little bit longer by sinking your hips down over your back wheel balance point. For the last one, slow to a stop and see if you can lift and move your front wheel side to side while your back wheel stays planted. This one is called the pendulum. It's one of my favorite drills for redirecting your bike at slow speeds. Now let's unlock your back wheel. The technique you need is called the pedal scoop. I'm using flat pedals here, and the pedal scoop gives me control and lift of the back wheel. Point your toes down, then push back and up on the pedal to load pressure on the back wheel. That pressure lifts it off the ground, and it comes up even easier when your body weight is forward on the bike. To get comfortable with this, try the endo drill. This one's pretty simple. Slow to a stop with your front brake and let momentum bring the back wheel off the ground. If that feels a little intense, try adding a pedaling motion into the endo. I find that by pedaling, it redirects my mental focus away from the front wheel and into the pedaling motion. It's somehow less scary, at least for me. Now, those first 2 drills are about getting comfortable over the front wheel balance point, but they don't actually use the pedal scoop. Once you're getting a little bit more comfortable, put your body weight forward and use that pedal scoop to lift the back wheel while you're rolling along. If you want to really flex the skill, lock up your front brake and try to lift your back wheel off the ground and move it in a circle. This drill is called clocks, and it's another one of my favorites. It's easier than it looks, and it's a fantastic way to prepare for front wheel pivots, which you're going to learn in this video. Here's my best tip as you develop these skills. Pay extra attention to your stance. I've seen so many riders struggle to lift the front wheel while they're standing in front of the bottom bracket. Don't make this any harder than it needs to be. Film yourself and watch what your body's actually doing. More often than not, you're not moving as much as you think you are. Watching yourself ride gives you instant feedback, and you can make those corrections quickly. Throughout this video, you'll hear me say practice makes progress, and I mean it. These skills are mastered through focused repetition. Sneak a few of these drills in front of your house or at the trailhead before or after a ride. When you're out on the trail, let's be honest, we're just trying to survive as we ride down the trail one time. We're not getting 10 to 15 reps of anything. Find those small obstacles around your neighborhood and put time into practicing, and you'll see an immediate impact. I guarantee it. Now that you understand unweighting and why practice matters, let's get into the tutorials. The number one issue that I see with riders is their comfort zone on the bike. Even if you've been riding for a while, your range of movement on the bike could still be low, and your options to manipulate the bike in different ways could be limited. That's the real focus of all 5 of today's skills, and the more you practice them, the more control and range of motion you'll develop. This is going to make a massive difference when you get back to the trails. The best part is you can take these drills with you anywhere. If you've got a few minutes at the trailhead or outside your house, you could spend those minutes practicing these skills. Over time, you'll not only master them, but you'll begin to push past the basic movement to unlock even more movement and control. Like everything, there are levels to this style of practice, and I'll do my best to give you options for each drill to push past your comfort zone. Maybe you've heard me say practice makes progress on a previous video. That's exactly how these skills and drills will help you. One other thing that I find to be extremely useful when you're practicing, use your phone to film yourself so that you can get a closer look at what you're doing on the bike. We often think that we're doing more than we actually are, and watching a video of yourself on the bike can be incredibly helpful when it comes to identifying your areas for improvement. To be more specific, when I talk about your comfort zone and being able to move the bike, I think it's important to zero in on the most important element. Each bike has a center of gravity, and understanding where this is can make a huge difference in the way that you ride your bike. This area right here is called the bottom bracket, and your body position over the bottom bracket has a huge impact on your ability to move the bike where you want it. If your body is in the wrong place, it doesn't really matter how strong you are. The bike is not going to do what you want it to do. It would be like the equivalent of standing on a ladder while trying to pick it up at the same time. Just to simplify what I mean here, if your body position is behind the bottom bracket, it's nearly impossible to get your back wheel off the ground. If your body is in front of the bottom bracket, your front wheel isn't going anywhere. So when I talk about movement and comfort zones on a bike, imagine what you could do with the bike if you were comfortable moving your body super far in either direction. As an example, the key factor in how high you can pedal up over an obstacle or even bunny hop is how far back you're comfortable getting on the bike. The best part is, you don't need to stress on any of that stuff just yet. We're going to zero in on the comfort zone expansion before we start applying it to anything as rowdy as a huge bunny hop or pedal up. One important thing I want to mention before we proceed, your hand positioning on the handlebars during these skills is going to be absolutely crucial. I recommend putting your hands as wide on the bars as you can, so you just use your index fingers for braking. Having a wide grip like this is going to give you more control, and using just one finger at the end of the brake will give you the most power. This might sound like a minor detail, but it's your main connection point to the bike, so we need to make sure that everything is dialed before we get started. Okay, that stuff is important foundation for the skills that we're going to talk about, but now it's time to dig into the actual skills and drills. Also, if you feel like you need more instruction on any of these skills, I'm going to put links in the description to the individual tutorials that I've already made for each one of these. Let's start with the front wheel lift, a skill that gets you moving on the bike and one of the lowest consequence and easiest skills to practice on flat ground. The biggest thing to remember is that we're not lifting the front wheel off the ground with our arms. We're doing something called unweighting, which means we move our body weight backward on the bike to make the front wheel extremely light. If you've ever struggled to lift the front wheel off the ground, it's most likely because your weight is ahead of the balance point on the bike, essentially weighing down the front wheel. Make sure that your hips are moving all the way behind the bottom bracket as you practice your front wheel lift. Now that you understand the basic skill of lifting the front wheel, let's practice a drill to help you develop better muscle memory with the movement. Roll along slowly and shift your body weight from the front of the bike to the back of the bike, bringing the front wheel up a little bit each time. Try to aim for 3 front wheel lifts in a row, and then keep adding to it as you get more comfortable. Repetition is key for this skill, and basically everything else we're going to practice today. If you're feeling confident with this skill and you want to push your comfort zone, we'll do a drill called wheelbase, where you hang out a little longer on the back of the bike. In this drill, you want to see if you can keep your front wheel off the ground for more than a split second, and you'll do that by sinking your body weight into the back wheel a little deeper. Make sure to cover your back brake while you're practicing this, just in case you give it a little bit too much power and start to loop out. This drill is going to help you build towards bunny hops and manuals, but just start by seeing if you can keep the front wheel off the ground for a little bit longer than usual. Next up, we'll focus on the back wheel lift. The skill we need to learn here is the motion of using our pedals to lift and move the back wheel off the ground. To do this, we'll tip our toes forward, then we'll push backwards and then up on the pedals, which creates enough pressure to lift the back wheel off the ground. I always ride with flat pedals, but even if you have clipless pedals, this can be extremely useful to learn, so you're not putting tons of stress on the mechanism in your pedals. The best part about this particular skill is that you can practice it without even riding the bike. You can stand next to your bike and try to use your pedal to scoop the back wheel in the air. Try it with each foot and then hop on the bike and do it while you roll slow on flat ground. Aside from the pedal motion, you can make this movement even easier by pushing your body weight super far forward on the bike to unweight the back wheel. The drill that will help you develop your back wheel lift is similar to what we did on the front wheel. Roll along slow and lift the back wheel off the ground 3 times in a row. You want to be able to have command with this movement 100% of the time, so you might even see how many back wheel lifts in a row you can pull off. One way that you can push your comfort zone with the skill is to extend your comfort zone over the front wheel. To do that, we're going to incorporate our front brake and do an endo. Roll along slow, grab your front brake, and bring your back wheel as high into the air as you feel comfortable. The higher up you can get it, the more range of motion you'll create for the back wheel lift, and growing that comfort zone is going to be key for a bunch of other skills down the line. Our third skill to learn and practice is all about pedal pressure. This basic skill comes in super handy on the trail when you run out of speed and need to quickly lift your front wheel, but it also helps train your brake control as well, because you have to ease off your brakes as you ease on the pedals, and then you can use your brakes again to control the bike once the front wheel is in the air. I'll say that it looks easier than it is, but if your body position is correct, you'll pick it up relatively fast. For this skill, I usually start in about 4th or 5th gear. It's hard enough that it gives me power, but it's not too heavy that I can't quickly push the pedals. Slow to a stop with both brakes, then backpedal about a quarter turn as you pull your body to the back of the bike. Once you're there, start applying pressure to the pedals as you ease off the brakes. Make sure you do it in that order, otherwise you'll just roll forward on flat ground. This one is really important to cover the back brake as you apply power, because if you push too hard and let go of the brake, well, you'll find out. The pedal pressure skill is a double whammy. It's as much about brake modulation as applying power. If you only practice one skill from today's video, please make it be this one. To build muscle memory for this, there's no special drill. I just need you to practice this skill with the intention of building control. Repeat it until you can lift your front wheel about a foot in the air and put it back down on the ground without tipping to your right or left. If you want to start pushing your comfort zone with this skill, find a ledge that's about curb height and start to time out your pedal pressure with the front wheel lift. Use it to ride up onto the obstacle from a standstill. If you really want to build up the skill, try to find something even higher than a curb to get the job done. Fourth on the list of skills is to learn the two-wheel hop. This is sometimes called an English hop, or if you're German, the name of this technique translates to piggy hop, which I think is hilarious. This is a slightly more complex move compared to the other ones we've been doing, but the good news is that we can already use our pedal scoop that we've been practicing to get our back wheel off the ground. To do a two-wheel hop, think of your body like a spring where you bend your elbows and knees to crouch into the center of the bike, then pop straight up and create upward momentum with your body to lift the bike off the ground. Use that pedal scoop motion with your feet to make sure that the back wheel lifts off the ground at the same time as the front. This is different than the bunny hop technique and honestly a little bit easier to do. You can start practicing this skill by rolling slow, and rolling will help you maintain balance as you learn the basics. As you improve, try to lock up your brakes and do the exact same thing. This will isolate the skill and the movement, forcing you to use the actual hops to maintain balance. Building up your muscle memory and helping your body become efficient with this technique comes down to repetition. So start with an easy drill, rolling along slow and doing 3 hops in a row. As you land that first hop, carry the momentum back down into the bike, setting yourself up for the next hop. Do this until you can hop on command. When you feel like you've got it, slow to a stop and do 2 hops. Think about using those hops to rebalance yourself. If you want to push your comfort zone with a skill, roll to a stop, lock your brakes, and see how many hops you can do in a row before you have to put your foot down. Keep that number in mind and try to break that number every single time you practice. You'll be surprised how much easier it gets over the course of a few sessions. Your body gets more efficient with the movement and the technique, and all of a sudden you go from a few hops to a bunch of hops. If this still feels easy, try the inchworm drill where you hop forward just a little bit at a time. And if that feels easy, take it to a small hill and try to use some small forward hops to climb up the hill. Our 5th and final skill to learn is the standing wheelie. Most people are too embarrassed to practice this one in public, since it's not always considered good style to do standing wheelies. But the benefits far outweigh the drawbacks on this one. Standing wheelies are the basics for climbing up and over obstacles on the trail, and they're also a great way to develop your comfort zone over the back wheel. I've got a full video on this skill on the channel, as well as a wheelie tutorial, so if you want to go deep on this skill, I've got plenty more to help you out. The thing to practice with this skill is the initial lift off of the front wheel. I'm not advocating for you to stand up wheelie across an entire parking lot here. We just need to get one full rotation to get your front wheel in the air. Start with your opposite foot forward and put your chest over the handlebars. As you push down on the pedal, lean your shoulders and hips back. The combination of those two things should lift your front wheel off the ground easily. And as you pedal, your strong foot will come around to the top of the pedal stroke. This puts you in the most stable position possible on the back wheel, and from here, you'll be in a good place to ride up and onto obstacles. The drill that I love for this skill is called wheelbase, and it starts with the same movement where we pedal up onto our back wheel. Once you get there, try to see how long you can hold that front wheel off the ground. The drill is called wheelbase, so a great goal for this one is to get your back wheel to the spot where your front wheel took off. This is an excellent way to develop confidence on the back wheel, which will help you in a variety of different ways. If you want to push your comfort zone with the skill, you can add in something called pedal timing to the skill. What this means is that you time out your front wheel lift and pedal rotation as you approach a small obstacle. For example, I usually start my pedal rotation and front wheel lift the same distance from an obstacle as the height of the obstacle. This takes a fair bit of practice to work out, but that's what small obstacles like curbs are for. Practice it first in mellow places and small obstacles before you need to put it to use on the trail, and then you'll be good to go when the time arises to make it happen. All 5 of the skills we talked about today are going to give you a big boost of control and confidence on the bike, but they won't work unless you do. Practice makes progress, and the more time you put into these 5, the better results you'll get. Don't be surprised if you don't nail these skills on the first try, but just know that with a little practice, each one gets easier and easier. If you're going to have 5 skills locked in on command, these are the ones to have, and they're well within your ability to learn. You got this.
In this video, we're going to talk a lot about what we do on our bikes, but don't forget that throughout the season, we need to also take good care of our bikes. One thing that I've actually focused on a lot this season is taking better care of my bike, and I've been using pretty much everything that Formula 100 makes to do exactly that. My bike takes a beating, and it's almost crazy how fast I can get it cleaned up and back on track again. I honestly think the degreaser might be magic because all you do is spray it on, wait 10 minutes, and then spray it off to get it looking brand new like this. The first time I used it, I was in complete disbelief. And the thing is, after realizing how well this stuff works, I felt like I was taking even better care of my bike because it was kind of fun to get it all dialed back in. Formula 100 makes high-quality lubes, bike wash, and degreaser. Check out the link in the description of this video and keep your bike dialed in just like mine.
Did you know that there's a hidden power in your pedals? It's beyond obvious that you use your pedals to get the bike rolling, to climb and descend, but there's another way to use your pedals that will completely unlock a new set of skills for you. Today we're going to learn all the different ways we can apply this new pedal power, along with plenty of drills to open up each skill that you can do with it. My name is Aaron. Welcome to Super Rider. On this channel, we break down complex bike skills into easy to learn techniques so you can quickly apply it to your riding. Today, we're going to learn a skill that will unlock your bike's movement in a new way. It's going to help you create power and motion on the bike at slow speeds or even in standstill situations. When you find yourself in a rock garden or in a tight spot where you need to get your front wheel over something to continue down the trail, this is the technique that will save the day. If you've ever been mystified by watching a trials rider effortlessly jump through the air, I'm about to tell you the secret that they all know. There is a technique that they use to make the bike blast off the ground, and it's the source of their power. The good news is that you don't need to be a trials rider to learn or use this skill. It can be applied to mountain bikes, and that's exactly what we're going to learn today. The secret comes down to pedal pressure, and using it effectively can bring our front wheel off the ground to create momentum and ride over obstacles. You can also use it to make super tight turns on the bike. But it's not exactly that simple. We'll need to practice putting our body in the right position on the bike to unlock this skill, and this video and the drills we're going to practice will get you there in no time. Let's first talk about our bike setup to learn this skill. First things first, we need to make sure we're in a good gear to practice this skill. I'm usually in 4th gear when I practice this, and the reason why I use this gear is that it's hard enough that the bike will move when I push on it, but it's light enough that I can essentially kick the pedals quick enough to create the movement that I need. I would suggest starting in 4th gear just like me, but if you feel like it's too light or too heavy when you're practicing, you can always adjust it up or down. Next, drop your seat out of the way. We're going to be standing while we practice this skill, and with the front wheel coming up, you just want that thing out of the way. Last, and this is extremely important, move your hands out to the ends of your handlebars and just use your index finger at the end of the brake lever. This is going to give us maximum control over both the handlebars and the brakes, which becomes more important as we make our way through all the drills in this video. Okay, let's get into the pedal pressure basics. I'm going to teach you this skill, and then I have a bunch of different drills that you can practice to lock it in. We're mostly going to learn it rolling forward, but later in this video, I'll show you how to use this same skill to turn the bike in either direction. To understand this process, let's take a closer look at my cranks and pedals. As I prepare for this movement, I slow the bike down, then rotate my cranks about a quarter turn backwards. By pushing on the pedals just this much, I can bring the front wheel up into the air with almost no effort at all. If I want my front wheel to come up higher, I can rotate the cranks back even further. But to get started, we just need a little movement. But this is only the first part. The element that makes this pedal power really come to life is our position on the bike. This area right here is the bottom bracket, and I sometimes refer to this area as the center of gravity on the bike. To create power with your pedal pressure and to get the bike to do what you need it to do, you need to make sure that your center of gravity is behind this point on the bike before you start pushing on the pedals. Let me show you what this looks like so you can see both of these elements together. I'll roll slow, and as I'm rotating my cranks back, I'll drop my hips behind the seat. This clears the way for the pedal pressure to lift the front wheel up. From here, you can grab the back brake and then ease it off as you put on the pedals, or you can just try to slow down to an almost stop before attempting it. The real secret here is to make your pedal pressure movement snappy enough that the bike springs to life. If you push too slow, you're just going to roll forward. If you're too far forward on the bike, you'll just roll forward. It's the perfect combination of pedal pressure and body movement that makes this movement happen. The last thing that can help you out with this movement is thinking about your arms in a rowing motion. Someone once referred to this motion like a pair of scissors closing, which I think is pretty accurate. That rowing motion with your arms will guide the handlebars up, perfectly working together with your pedaling motion. This should be pretty light work for your arms. If you find yourself pulling too hard, you need to get back to the pedals and focus your attention there. One more important thing to keep in mind. The reason why we keep our hands wide on the handlebars with one finger on the brake is to modulate our brakes and pedal pressure to get the exact level of output. This part takes the longest to dial in perfectly, but it gives us even more control over our pedals and brakes. It's also important so we don't flip over backwards, although it's highly unlikely that you'll get anywhere close to the back wheel balance point when you're first practicing. But this will become more important as we get into the later drills in this tutorial. Our first drill is going to be a simple one. Find a line on the ground or use a small stick. Roll up to it and use your pedal pressure to lift your front wheel up and over the line. Keep going until you feel like you can do this every single time, and be conscious where your body is on the bike. Maybe even use your phone to film yourself. That can be a huge help when you're learning new movements on the bike. When you're feeling confident with this motion, let's try to ride up onto something with it. Find a curb in your neighborhood and time out your pedal pressure to lift your front wheel onto it. Think also about the momentum that you could build with this motion, which would carry you over the curb. The faster you execute the pedal pressure movement, the more momentum you can build, and that's ultimately what those trials riders are doing. Super fast pedal pressure to get the bike to move quickly. If you find a curb that's a little bit higher, or you want to test out the skill on a bigger obstacle, I think this movement sets you up really nicely to unweight the back tire as well. We started with our body at the back of the bike using our pedals to lift the front wheel onto the obstacle, but now we want to bring our back wheel up a bit higher onto that obstacle as well. Think about slingshotting your body weight toward the handlebars as the front wheel rolls onto the ledge, and that should unweight your back wheel and bring it along for the ride. The higher you go, the more exaggerated this movement will need to be. Next, if you want to use the pedal pressure skill to turn the bike, we can take it back to that first line on the ground. This time, line up parallel with it, and as you roll up, lean your bike away from the obstacle as you lean your shoulders where you want to go. Remember that you need to be on the back of your bike with your pedals rotated back right as you begin the lean. Then, add pedal pressure and pull the bars toward you. Start in the direction away from your forward foot. That's typically the easier direction to learn, and then try the other direction. If you're really feeling confident on this one, you can take this drill to another curb and test it out. Same principles apply. You can also use this skill to develop more confidence over your back wheel balance point. Try to use your pedals to bring your front wheel up, and then see if you can coast a full wheelbase with the momentum that you've created. If you really want to take this up a notch, bring up your front wheel, then grab your back brake and try to reset your pedals while you hold the back wheel balance point. Ease off your brake as you push the second pedal kick and see how it goes. There's a lot going on here as you're developing insane brake control and insane back wheel confidence at the same time. If you can do this, you're basically a trials rider like me. The point I want to emphasize the most about this skill is that while your pedal pressure and body position are important, what really brings this whole thing to life is how snappy you can make this movement. I frequently use my brakes to stop the bike completely, then kick the pedals to get the most movement out of my bike. As you develop this skill, you should definitely try to develop that same mindset of fast, snappy movement, and you'll eventually find that you're sneaking this movement into all kinds of riding scenarios. This might all feel unnatural at first, trying to develop brake control and using your pedals in a new way, but once you feel that unlock happening, it's totally worth it. Put a little time into it each ride, and don't forget, practice makes progress. Have you ever been on a ride and come up to a spot that looked just like this, and you felt like your only option was to get off the bike and walk to the top? In today's video, we're going to work on a technique that's going to make it so you can ride up really difficult sections of trail just like this. And the best part is, you can actually practice it on flat ground so that you've got it ready so that the next time you find a place like this, you're able to ride up it. Now, I'm in one of my favorite trail systems in Northern California. This place is called Skeggs, and the area behind me right here is appropriately named The Wall. And in today's video, I'm gonna ride up the wall, and then I'm gonna show you how we ride stuff just like this, and how you can practice it at home. My name is Aaron. Welcome to Super Rider. On this channel, we break down complex bike skills into easy to learn techniques that you can quickly apply to your riding. The best part about mountain bike skills is that there are only a handful of basic things that you need to learn that will help you build up your confidence and control on two wheels. And then from there, you can just add on to them. For example, while I'm riding up a steep trail in this video, I'm utilizing a basic skill called a two-wheel hop. And then I add a little twist to the technique to get that forward movement up the wall. So that's what we'll do today. We're going to dive into the two-wheel hop, and then I'm going to show you how to develop the skill in a way that you can use on the trail to unlock even the most challenging sections. Just a quick note on bike setup before we kick off this one. Make sure that your seat is dropped down and out of the way before you start practicing. I also like to run my hands as far out on the handlebars as possible to give me maximum control over not only the handlebars, but the brakes as well. You've probably seen someone with clipless pedals do this technique before, but in today's video, I'm going to teach you the flat pedal method. Even if you run clipless pedals, I think it's worthwhile to learn this version of the skill so you put less stress on the spring mechanism inside your pedals. Lastly, this skill will work with any style of bike, 27.5 or 29, hardtail or full suspension. You can even do this on an e-bike if you want. Before we dive directly into lifting the bike off the ground, there's likely one area that is holding you back from learning the two-wheel hop. If you're watching this video, you might not understand how to get the entire bike, specifically the back wheel, to come along for the ride. This is where the pedal scoop technique comes in handy. The pedal scoop is how we get a flat pedal to attach to our foot, using pressure to lock it in, which brings the back wheel up into the air. For this specific technique, you need to point your toes down, then push back and up on the pedal, making a scooping motion. Your momentum on the bike is moving forward, so pushing back and up will redirect the back wheel momentum off the ground. Test this out by standing next to the bike and putting one foot on the back pedal, then doing a pedal scoop motion while you stand on flat ground. This is a great way to get the feeling for this technique, and you can get some repetition at this point to start building up your muscle memory. I do think that the back pedal ends up doing most of the work, but ideally both pedals are making that same movement to give you the maximum power with the back wheel lift. To lock in the pedal scoop and back wheel lift, hop back on the bike and roll along slowly with your weight relatively far forward on the bike. This will make the back wheel as light as it can be, and then you can start lifting the back wheel off the ground using your pedal scoop technique. No brakes required here. Just roll slow and kick that back wheel up in the air. Try to do a bunch in a row as you ride slow, and keep doing this until you can lift the back wheel off the ground on command. It might take a little while to completely lock it in, but that's exactly why we say practice makes progress. Once you're feeling confident getting the back wheel off the ground, we can practice the two-wheel hop. Some people refer to this technique as the English hop, and it used to be called the spud hop when people did it with clipless pedals back in the day. The German translation of this technique is pretty funny too. Hopefully a German speaker can share that name in the comments. To execute a basic two-wheel hop, you need to think about your body like a spring. Your body crouches down into the center of the bike, bending your elbows and knees to coil up the spring. As you pop out of the bike, you bring your bike straight up with you, first extending your body upward to create momentum, then bending your elbows and knees again to bring the wheels up off the ground. As you start to learn this skill, don't worry about the height of the wheels off the ground, just make sure that it's happening. We'll get to the bigger hops later in this video. To help you practice this skill and to build some balance into the mix, I suggest starting off at a slow roll, then popping both wheels off the ground. Stay centered and keep your bike level as you lift off, then land in full control. Once you get the first hop done, try to do a few hops in a row to build repetition into the mix. You can also challenge yourself by slowing to an almost stop and continuing to hop. The important thing about repetition here is that your body's going to figure out how to become efficient with this movement. When people first learn the two-wheel hop, they're exhausted after a few hops, but as your body gets more efficient with the movement, you'll be able to hop quite a bit more, which is what you'll need when you're tackling a big hill like I did in the beginning of this video. One other way to push your progression with the skill is to try for a big hop where you exaggerate your movement as much as you possibly can. I find that when you're learning new skills, pushing past the usual limit will help you explore the motion a lot easier than going too small with it. One thing that's extremely helpful is setting up a phone and filming my riding. That way I can see if my body is doing what I think it should be doing. In most cases, you're not moving around nearly as much as you think you are, so the video from your phone is helpful for spotting your mistakes quickly. And best case, if you nail it, you've now got a video clip to share on your Instagram. So now that we have the basics of the two-wheel hop figured out, it's time to put it to work. The principal element here is balance, and we add balance movement to it by incorporating some drills to teach us how to recenter the bike where we want it to go. All of the stuff we're working on from here on out will build on that basic two-wheel hop technique, and each drill is going to help you learn it even better. So the only real requirement to continue is being able to get both tires off the ground with some level of control. This first drill is actually the first thing I started practicing on my bike, and I'm excited to share it with you. Up until now, we've done rolling hops, and the rolling part helped us maintain balance. Now we're going to try some static hops, meaning that the brakes are locked up, and we'll use our hops to maintain our balance. Start by slowing down to a complete stop and locking up both your front and back brakes. Before you lose your balance, drop into the bike and then give it a quick hop. When you land, hold your balance as long as you can, then hop again to regain your balance. A fun game to play here is to try to get 10 hops before you put your foot down. It sounds easy, but if you're just learning this, 10 hops will be exhausting. This drill is cool because not only will you be practicing your hops, but you'll also be practicing stabilization using your body between the hops. Next, find a line on the ground and roll up next to it. Lock both brakes and try to hop sideways over the line, then hop back to where you started. I suggest the same approach you took on the first drill, where you hop, hold your balance, then hop back. To get the bike moving, I like to start by shifting my body in the direction I want to go as I spring out of the bike, and then I take the bike along with me. The best way to think about this process is that you're using your body to initiate the motion, then recentering your bike underneath to maintain your balance. Don't feel like you need to make giant hops here either, as they'll likely throw you off more than help you out. Just use small side-to-side hops to keep your balance on both sides of the line. Play a game here and see how many times you can hop over and back on the line. Repetition will continue to help your body adjust to the movement as you'll continue building muscle memory and efficiency with this technique. The next drill we're going to practice is called the inchworm drill. Since you already know how to hop side to side by using your body to initiate the momentum, you can just redirect your body forward instead of sideways. Just like the side-to-side hops, I want you to keep both brakes locked for this drill. Although we've been trying to stay centered on the bike for the two-wheel hop, you might also try to play around with your body position on this one, moving back and then throwing your weight forward as you hop. Start here just trying to get a little hop forward and see how many you can do in a row before you get tired. It's better to focus in on the technique than it is to try to send it on a big forward hop at this point. Technique outweighs strength on this kind of stuff anyway. As you get better and more efficient with the inchworm, you'll notice that your forward hops increase in size without any additional effort. The last drill I would suggest is making an X on the ground. Hop along one side, hop back and forth, and maybe even play with hopping your tires in different squares. This X setup is a great way to focus on wheel placement and other skills like that. You could basically have a never-ending supply of stuff to practice with a pretty simple setup. Up until this point, we've worked on the two-wheel hop basics and some movement in each direction, which gives you a huge foundation to apply the skill on a real trail. But before we do that, there's one other thing I want to share with you, and this really takes it up a notch. When we're trying to hop up difficult sections, momentum is our friend. And while it might be steep and rocky, sometimes we can get our wheels to roll forward just a little bit. Locking up your brakes will help you stay in place, but there's a little finesse that you can do with your pedal pressure to add in some extra momentum in certain cases. I'm not saying this is how you should always do it, but sometimes you can add it in and it makes things a little less tiring, especially when the terrain cooperates. So when you want to keep the bike in place, brakes are on. If you think your bike might be able to roll over some of the uphill terrain, you can mix pedal pressure and braking to create a slightly bigger movement with the bike. If you watch this video here, you can see that my wheels are slightly rolling, and it's because I'm easing off the brakes as I two-wheel hop forward. Then when I feel like I've run out of forward momentum, I lock up the brakes and do it all over again. I'm not getting a ton of power from my pedals since I'm doing a pedal scoop, but it's better than nothing to get the wheels rolling a little bit. The best thing to do now is to find a small hill and test out the techniques we've learned today. Start with your brakes on and try to hop up, and then start to ease off the brakes while you hop forward. The timing with the brakes and the pedals can be super tricky, and it takes a little extra time to learn, but at least you can still get the job done with your brakes on. One fun way to practice this skill is on a mellow flight of stairs. You can hop your front wheel a step or two higher than your back wheel and then hop up the stairs. Make sure you're hopping away from your derailleur side though, just to be safe. Another benefit from learning the two-wheel hop is that you can also use it to hop sideways off small ledges. Start super small with this on curbs and stuff because you need to make sure that both wheels come off the ground at the same time. If your back wheel drops early, you're in for a world of hurt. Test this one out on something tiny and practice it a ton before you try it out on the trail. The two-wheel hop skill has bailed me out on the trail so many times, and the best thing is that it's super easy to practice anywhere. If you want to continue developing your riding skills, go check out this video here. And don't forget, practice makes progress. If you've ever struggled to balance in place on your bike, no matter which kind of bike you are riding, there's one thing that you're likely missing out on. In today's video, not only are we going to identify the problem that's holding you back, but I'm going to give you a drill to practice that will help you eliminate that issue so you can have perfect balance on your bike. My name is Aaron. Welcome to Super Rider. On this channel, we break down complex bike skills into easy to learn techniques so you can quickly apply it to your riding. The skill we're going to learn today is called the track stand, and it's a technique that we use anytime we want to balance our bike in place. Additionally, I also utilize the track stand anytime I hop on a bike for the first time. It's a quick and easy way to just get acquainted with the bike. It helps me understand the way the bike balances when I'm riding it, and I can get a better sense for the geometry of the bike, which gives me a little preview of how the bike will handle when I'm out riding it. Now, most people make the same mistake when it comes to the track stand, and to help you identify where you're likely going wrong, I want to break down every detail and walk you through all the elements of the technique from start to finish. I think by listing it out in order, like slow motion style, you'll catch what you're missing, and then we can work on that. Let's quickly start by talking about what a track stand is not. This isn't a static hold where you lock your body into one spot and maintain perfect positioning while the bike stands magically still on the ground. Just like wheelies, we never lock directly into the balance point of the bike and hold it indefinitely. Instead, we learn how to find the balance point and thread our body and bike back and forth through that point to maintain control. If you've tried unsuccessfully to balance your bike, the method of locking your brakes and holding it steady has meant that you tried to balance side to side instead of front to back. The reason why you've likely tried to do this method is because you haven't yet learned how to make that back and forth motion happen effectively. The good news is, I have a way to teach you this movement, and it's going to be easier to practice than you think. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about what's really happening when we track stand. When we're in the correct stance on the bike, we have our pedals relatively even and the bike angled diagonally below us. We're covering the front brake with our index finger, but we don't necessarily need our back brake. Our body is positioned relatively far forward on the bike to start, with our shoulders about even with our handlebars, arms straight. So that's the basic starting point of the track stand. And now, to maintain balance from that position, we need to do one very important thing. We mentioned earlier that this technique is a front to back movement, not a side to side movement, and that's where this next part comes in. I'm going to be slowly rolling forward with my wheel slightly turned away from my front foot. Then I'll grab my front brake to stop the bike in place. I'll let my body lean forward for a split second, and then I'm going to shift my weight backwards as I let go of the front brake. When I do that little shift, it will create just a little bit of momentum away from the front wheel, and the bike will start moving backwards. I need to backpedal a quarter rotation to make sure that my pedal pressure doesn't stop that momentum. And then when I'm ready to move back forward again, I just push on the pedals to roll ahead. We just completely broke down the movement, but now it's time to simplify it so we can start learning it one piece at a time. I think we've identified the problem that catches most riders. That rollback in the middle of the track stand can be the most challenging part to learn. The most common advice that I hear for learning track stands is to try doing it on a small hill. And the reason why you hear that is because you're getting a gravity assist on the backwards roll. That makes sense, but it doesn't help you learn how to get to that point, and it doesn't teach you how to create that backwards movement without a hill. So let's break this whole thing down and give you everything you need to learn to track stand properly. If you want to eventually take this to a slight uphill to practice, by all means go for it. But I'm going to give you everything you need to do to learn the skill anywhere, and then all you need to do from there is spend the time to practice getting it all locked in. Also, as I'm teaching today's skills and drills, I'm going to try to over-exaggerate my movements as much as I can, so you can clearly spot the movements of this technique. As you develop this skill, you'll learn finesse, meaning that you won't need to be as dramatic with your movements. As that finesse develops over time, you can move less, but still get the bike to do what you want it to do. For now, I highly recommend starting big with your motions, then refining it from there as your skills develop. What most people get wrong when they're learning skills is that they don't move as much as they think they are, so they don't get the result that they need to get the bike moving. If you ever feel like the bike isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing, or curious to know if you're really moving enough, I highly recommend filming yourself to see if you're doing what you think you're doing on the bike. We're going to start our practice by putting our bike and body in the base track stand position, and we'll lean our front wheel into some sort of obstacle like a log or a decent sized immovable object. This helps us get comfortable in the basic stance, and then we're going to move from here once this starts feeling normal. Keep your pedals level with your front wheel facing away from your forward foot, and put your shoulders over the handlebars with your arms extended straight. You don't need your back brake at all, but you will want to lock up your front brake to hold your wheel in place. One note here, sometimes people learn track stands with the front wheel facing toward their forward foot, and that's not necessarily wrong, but learning the track stand with your front wheel facing away will make it easier for you to eventually learn front wheel pivots, because both skills share that same motion of facing the front wheel away from your opposite foot. If you can track stand like this, you'll also be able to practice the pivot motion from a track stand instead of having to learn the whole skill from scratch. So learning track stands with your front wheel facing away from your front foot makes it easier to learn a second skill, and that's exactly why I teach it that way. Coming back to our base position here, we're leaning into the front wheel to maintain our balance against the log, and this should feel super stable. From here, we're going to start practicing our first drill, which is initiating the backwards roll. There are two important elements to a backwards roll. First, you need to create backwards momentum with your body, and second, you need to backpedal your bike. The first part should be obvious, but the reason why we backpedal is to make sure our hub doesn't catch, which would stop the backwards movement. Backpedaling is like putting the bike in neutral, and we only need a little backpedal here to get what we need. To put it all together, we're going to create momentum with our body by pushing it super far forward over the handlebars. Then as you shift your weight backwards, you let go of the front brake while giving the bike a little back pedal. Just try for one rotation with your pedals, then put your foot on the ground. A few things that might take a couple tries here are the timing between your body movement and releasing the brake, and also the speed at which you move your body. Like I said, try to overdo it with your body movement a little bit at first, just to get a feel for how much it takes to move the bike. Do this first drill 10 times or until it starts to feel a little bit natural. You might also notice when you're backpedaling that the wheel catches and stops moving, and that's an important thing to notice because we're going to incorporate that into the next drill. The best part is you now have a basic understanding of how your body moves the bike backwards and how to essentially get out of the way of that backward momentum by backpedaling. This is truly the key element of the skill, and now we just have to build it up from here. This next drill starts the exact same way, except instead of putting your foot down at the end of it, I want you to do a half rotation of the back pedal and then push back on the pedals. You're gonna feel the engagement with your drivetrain that we tried to avoid in the previous drill, and understanding where that kicks in will only help you improve this movement. Keep pushing on your pedals until that front wheel arrives back at the starting point up against the obstacle we've been using. Up to this point, we've made huge movements to get the bike moving, but now we want to dial it in just a little bit. We only need a little backwards movement to happen before we push back on the pedals, and a slightly smaller movement here is going to make it easier to control since we're trying to push on our pedals to get back to our starting point. Play with this a little bit until you get it right. If you don't roll back far enough, you won't get the benefit for your balance, but if you roll back too far, it'll be hard to control. Typically, that half to quarter back pedal is just about right, but you can decide for yourself what feels comfortable. At this stage, we've got all of the elements in place to create the backwards movement, and now you also understand how to return to your starting point using pedal pressure. If you can make this back and forth movement happen while using that obstacle as a starting point, you're almost all the way there. We just need to remove the obstacle and you'll be able to balance anytime, anywhere. Ultimately, that obstacle has been functioning as a stop for the momentum of the bike, and we can recreate that feeling by using our front brake. Try this. Ride slow to a stop, angling your front wheel away from your forward foot. As you slow to a stop, lock up your front brake and let your body weight come forward, shoulders over the handlebars. Keep your weight there for a split second, then shift it back, going into the same routine that you did when we worked with the obstacle. As you backpedal, then add pedal pressure back onto the wheel, move forward and grab your front brake again, then rinse and repeat. While you can't spend an indefinite time with your front brake locked, it should at least give you enough time to initiate the body movement forward then backwards. The track stand skill is just this same movement on repeat, and the more you practice it, the easier it gets. As you continue to develop the skill, test it out on different obstacles, uphill, or wherever you can find time to sneak in a few minutes of practice. The more time you put in, the more finesse you build, and the less movement you'll need to make in order to get the bike balanced. Have fun and don't forget, practice makes progress. Everyone wants to learn how to make super tight turns on their mountain bike, but this movement over the front wheel usually scares people away from trying it out. Today, we're going to get past that fear by breaking this technique down into small, easy to learn elements that will make this skill much easier to pick up. And not only are we going to learn one skill to make tight turns, I'm going to teach you another trick at the end of this video for tight turns that doesn't involve the front wheel at all, which comes in handy for other scenarios on the trail, and it's a lot less intimidating to learn. My name is Aaron. Welcome to Super Rider. On this channel, we break down complex bike skills into easy to learn techniques that you can quickly apply to your riding. The name of the skill you're going to learn today is called the front wheel pivot. To quickly turn the bike around, we pivot over the front wheel with our back wheel doing the bulk of the movement. You can use this in a variety of different scenarios, from tight turns to complete turnarounds. But the good news, it's actually a lot easier than it looks. I promise. Most riders struggle with this skill because they don't understand the order in which they need to perform the technique, so they never actually begin practicing it. For the riders who do understand the basics, the other common mistake they make is that they're trying to push the wheel in the wrong direction, and that makes it super hard to learn. I'm going to help you get untangled here, and once you understand the elements, this trick is going to come together relatively easy for you. I mean, it'll be hopefully a lot clearer in your head, which is half the battle for something like this. After that, you just need to put in some time to build it up. Another reason why you don't see this skill being used by many riders is that unlike some skills where you can instantly master it by fixing one thing or putting your body position in the right place, the front wheel pivot is a progressive skill. What I mean by that is expanding your range of movement only comes with practice. We're going to begin with small movements and slowly expand our comfort zone, which unlocks more and more movement. You might have seen me do giant pivots like this, but I didn't get here right away. While the basic technique is the exact same whether I move 1 inch or 1 foot in either direction, my expanded comfort zone on the bike is the element that makes the real difference for how far I can rotate. This is probably a good thing, right? We want it to be easy to start, and then you can slowly push it from there. If I made you pop way up onto your front wheel right out of the gate, I suspect that would make you extremely uncomfortable. So we're going to approach this technique from the smallest and easiest movements, then build from there. Let's talk about a few quick bike setup things, and then we'll move on to the technique. First, slam your seat down as low as it will go. Getting this out of the way will make it a lot easier to learn this skill. I also recommend learning this technique with flat pedals if at all possible. It's totally fine if you have clipless pedals, and the technique is the same no matter what pedals you have, but since we're going to be rocking up onto our front wheel and rotating the bike side to side, I think it's safest and best to run flat pedals when you're learning this skill, so you can quickly step off the bike if necessary. There's no requirement for a specific gear for this skill, but anytime I'm working on my flat ground skills, I'm usually in 4th or 5th gear. Also, make sure that your hands are as wide as possible on the handlebars, just using one finger for braking. This is going to give you the best control over the bike and the brakes, both of which are extremely necessary for this skill. Last thing before we get started, I'm going to teach 2 different variations of this skill. The rolling version, which I think is the easiest way to learn, and then the static version, which you can do from a standstill. We're also going to start learning to pivot toward our front foot since it's the easiest to learn it that way before we learn the opposite direction. And then after all that, I'll teach you the back wheel pivot, which also helps us with tight turns and doesn't require going up onto our front wheel. Let's get started with the first element of the front wheel pivot, the endo. This is a simple move to start practicing. The hard part is pushing your comfort zone with it. Start by rolling along slowly, then grabbing the front brake to stop your motion, which brings your back wheel off the ground. Let the wheel come off the ground naturally with the momentum and bend your knees slightly to help guide the wheel up with control. Your chest should be over the handlebars or near the front of the bike if you're doing this right. We want our body weight to be forward so that the back wheel is unweighted and free to lift off the ground. Start small with the endo and back wheel lift and then work your way up to get the wheel about 1 foot off the ground. The reason why we want to practice bringing the back wheel up higher is that when we eventually start pivoting, the higher we can lift our back wheel up, the further we can rotate while our back wheel is in the air. Spend the most time practicing this movement and getting comfortable up on the front wheel. Most people's biggest fear with this part is that they're going to flip over the bars. But the truth is, your front wheel balance point is quite a bit further than you're going to need to go for this technique. You should be well within your range of movement without risking anything like that. Actually, the more you practice this, the more difficult it will be to go over the bars because you'll be expanding your comfort zone. So you get that as an added bonus. Here's a trick that I've found useful for building comfort over the front wheel. It's called the ET, and all you have to do is sneak in a quick pedal when you're up on the front wheel. Redirecting your brain to the motion of the pedals instead of the front wheel can redirect your mental energy so you're thinking about the pedals instead of being scared about flipping over the bars. As a bonus, the higher up you get on the front wheel, the easier this whole trick gets. So you can basically trick yourself into getting comfortable on the front wheel. Or at the very least, it's less boring practicing this part over and over. Another thing that helps a lot of people learn this skill is filming themselves with their phone. Set your phone up to capture your movement and watch what your body and bike are doing between each attempt. You'll be able to spot what you're doing right and wrong and then adjust accordingly. The common mistake riders make is that they think they're moving more than they actually are on the bike. Most people, including me, have a hard time understanding what we're actually doing on the bike. But when you see it, you'll instantly know. This is a great way to speed up your progression with just about any skill. I can't recommend it enough. Okay, next up, we're going to add in a twist to what we've been practicing so far. As we initiate the endo movement, we're going to quickly twist the front wheel about 45 degrees away from our forward foot. I need to repeat that last part because a lot of people mess this part up and it's the most important element. Turn your handlebars away from your front foot. So basically, as you grab your front brake, twist the handlebars at the same time. This sets off the motion with your body and bike to create movement in your back wheel. Remember to keep your weight forward like you did with the endo. Think about pushing your momentum on the front wheel with your hips and shoulders and use your back foot to help guide the back wheel around. That's a lot happening at once. Your first attempt at this might be scary because we're mentally conditioned not to make sharp turns on our bike while we're rolling. You don't really need much speed at all to make this happen, but also realize that your first attempt is not going to move too much. It might still just feel like an endo at first with no real pivot happening. Focus on getting the first 4 or 5 attempts out of the way, and before you know it, you'll get a little bit more comfortable with this twisting movement. The further and faster you twist that front wheel, the easier your pivot movement is going to get. Add in a little higher back wheel lift and the pivot gets even bigger. Aim to get just a 1-inch pivot to start, and then your task is to increase the size of the movement 1 inch at a time. The same technique will work from the smallest pivot to the largest one. The only real difference is how much you exaggerate the movement, which only comes with practice. If you ever feel like you're getting stuck with the skill, go back to that basic endo we started with and push your comfort zone a little bit more. The height of your back wheel lift will give your back wheel more time in the air to pivot. You'll notice that we've just been focusing on pivoting in one direction so far. That's on purpose. Pushing the back wheel into place during the pivot with our back foot is helpful, and when we pivot in the opposite direction, we don't have that ability. So one way is always going to be easier than the other, but once you have the basics dialed, it's a lot easier to learn the opposite direction. When you start feeling confident with your main pivot direction, feel free to experiment with the other direction. Everything else should be the same. Twist your front wheel in the opposite direction you want the back wheel to go, and then lead with your hips and shoulders to pivot the back wheel into place. One last tiny tweak that you can make to this technique will be the release of your brakes as the back wheel lands. One thing that can be kind of tricky with rotating the bike around like this is your side-to-side balance once both wheels are back on the ground. I find that when my back wheel lands without the brakes on, that little roll that I get seems to help me rebalance the bike. If I land the back wheel and my brakes are still on, sometimes I feel like I might need another small pivot to adjust to keep my balance, depending on how far I just pivoted. You might wait until you get the basic feel for pivots before you add in this braking element, but it's something to think about as you get more comfortable with the skill. Okay, so that's the easy version. We're rolling along on flat ground and got the basic pivot done. But what if you're on a trail rolling super slow or even stopped in place? This is exactly why I always teach track stands with your front wheel facing away from your front foot. If you learned it that way from me or anyone else, you're stoked right now. And if you didn't, that's okay too. You can still get the job done. Also, if you're watching this and you can't track stand, I'm going to put a link in the video to that tutorial. We'll get you balancing like this in no time. The reason I teach track stands with your front wheel facing away from your front foot is to perfectly set you up for front wheel pivots. If you can stand here and balance the bike with your front wheel facing away, all you really need to do is grab the front brake and lean forward to start the pivot. You basically already learned the first half of the trick without realizing it. But for those of you who learn to track stand with your front wheel facing into your front foot, no worries at all. In fact, this might actually help you create an even more powerful pivot. Remember when we first learned the skill, that front wheel twist away from the front foot created the momentum to move the back of the bike. You're going to be swapping the direction of the front wheel almost an entire 180 degrees, and since you're already balanced, you could create some serious momentum here with that twist. Whichever way you track stand, there are a few modifications to really get the pivot moving for you. Here's how to get it done. First, over-exaggerate your movement on the bike, especially the movement of your body from the back of the bike to the front of the bike. Since we're not carrying momentum, we need to create it with our body movement. When I'm switching from a track stand to a pivot, I grab the front brake as I'm making the shift to the bike. That way all the momentum goes into the front wheel, which should help bring the back wheel up. I sort of think of this phase like a slingshot. I quickly lean back, then push all my weight forward, leading with my hips and shoulders forward and slightly into the direction that I want to pivot. With the front wheel turned already, all my momentum and energy is going into the pivot. If you can pedal scoop, which is pushing backwards and up on the pedals, add that into the mix as well. That will help unweight the back wheel, and then you have even better control guiding the pivot. The same thing applies here as the rolling version. You're going to have to start off small and work your way up to bigger pivots over time. If you can already track stand with a fair bit of confidence, this version of the front wheel pivot might actually be the easier way to learn it, since you can start with that front wheel twisted. But I'll leave that one up to you. If you want to try out a drill that will completely lock in front wheel pivots for you, try the clocks drill. Lock in your front brake, put your body weight forward, and try to pivot that back wheel around in a full 360. Challenge yourself and see how many pivots it takes you to get the back wheel around the entire clock. This is one of my favorite ways to get a ton of repetition in with the skill. Okay, as promised, let's talk about the other way to make super tight turns on the bike. This other variation is the back wheel pivot, and it comes in handy in different scenarios on the trail. From watching this video, you already understand how your position on the bike can unweight the wheel and allow it to move, and the back wheel pivot is no different. The first thing we need to quickly learn is how to unweight the front wheel. This means that we'll need to get our body weight, and more specifically our hips, behind the bottom bracket of the bike. This makes the front wheel super light and helps it lift off the ground. You can practice this just rolling along, shifting to the back of the bike to bring the front wheel slightly off the ground. When you have command of this movement, we can apply it to the pivot motion. To try the back wheel pivot, slow to a stop with both brakes. As you unweight the front wheel by pulling your weight to the back of the bike, twist your front wheel in the direction you want to go and pull your knee away from the top tube of the bike to help move the bike in that direction. You'll create a pivot on the back wheel and the front wheel should move. I find it easiest to pivot in the direction of my back foot because I feel like I can really lean my hips into my back foot in this movement. But you're welcome to try both ways to see which one is more comfortable to start with. One thing I suggest if you're having trouble is creating a little extra twist in the front wheel. While you're stopped, first twist your front wheel in the opposite direction, then twist it back the way you want to go. That extra rotation you've created will help unlock the momentum you need to pivot the bike. If you're still feeling stuck, go back to filming yourself and see if you're far enough back on the bike. That's usually the culprit for most people that can't lift and move the front wheel. Just like we practiced with the front wheel pivot, a great drill for the back wheel pivot is the clocks drill. Roll to a stop and pivot your front wheel around in a circle. You might also realize that pivoting your wheels around like this is a great way to develop balance without having to track stand, especially when you hop it back and forth in one spot. That's another bonus from learning pivots with both your front and back wheel. With both the front and back wheel pivots locked in, you're basically unstoppable at tight turns, and you're likely going to find all sorts of other ways to incorporate this technique into your riding. These skills only get easier and more useful the more you work on them, and like I always say, practice makes progress. There's one mountain bike skill that gets overlooked all the time, which is crazy because it's likely one of the most useful techniques you could possibly learn. The reason why people skip learning it is because at one point it was considered bad style to do a portion of the technique. But the truth is, we need to get over it and start practicing it because it opens up a whole new world of trail riding skills for you. My name is Aaron. Welcome to Super Rider. On this channel, we break down complex bike skills into easy to learn techniques so you can quickly apply it to your riding. If you've ever wanted to have the ability to ride up and over obstacles, or if you've ever needed a more consistent way to clear obstacles on the trail without using a bunny hop, today's lesson is going to give you everything you need to get it done. In the process, you're going to develop a balance point on the bike that rarely gets any attention, and you'll probably pick up a few more things as we go along too. Seriously, this skill is underrated and not terribly hard to learn. Let's get into it. The most important skill that no one practices is the standing wheelie. Why? At some point, people thought that it looked weird to do a wheelie without sitting on the seat. When it comes to standing wheelies across a parking lot like this, they might actually be right. But also, in clowning such a fundamental skill, they set back a ton of riders from developing what I believe to be one of the most important things you can do on a mountain bike. The reason why I think this technique is so important is that it does a few things that bunny hops can't do. When you're riding along and you want to ride up onto an obstacle, you might encounter bumpy or uneven terrain which would slow down your speed or throw off your balance. A bunny hop in these conditions would put you in a weird spot, or even worse, make you come up short and smash into the obstacle. The other reason why a bunny hop isn't always the best move is that to execute the move, you have to stop pedaling and even out your pedals, which basically means you take your foot off the gas and lose momentum. Again, you can come up short or lose momentum when you're on the obstacle, both things that we don't want to do. By keeping our pedals moving throughout this technique, we maintain momentum, push through uneven terrain, and put our body in a strong position to ride over any type of obstacle as we keep power on the pedals. If you can't wheelie, not to worry. We're going to quickly go through the basic standing version of this technique, which will help you get better at normal wheelies too. If you can already wheelie, the two hardest parts of this technique are pedal timing and maintaining your side-to-side balance, and that's what we're going to spend most of our time working on today. Let's start with a few quick details to get rolling. Even if you can do normal seated wheelies, watch through this part just to be sure that we're all on the same page. First, two setup things. I think you should seriously consider practicing this skill on flat pedals. Clips aren't going to give you any advantage at all with this skill, plus you could potentially loop out backwards, and you want to be able to step off the bike if that happens. Also, to keep our side-to-side balance in check, we'll be rocking our feet side-to-side on the pedal, which is impossible to do if you're clipped in. Second, I want you to make sure that your hands are as wide on the handlebars as possible, just using your index fingers to modulate the brakes. Having your hands in this position will put your index finger at the end of the brake lever, which gives you the most power and modulation with your braking. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a chance that you could start tipping backward during the wheelie motion, so we always want to make sure that we have the back brake covered. As far as bikes go, the technique is exactly the same no matter what bike you're riding. Wheel size makes no difference, suspension or hardtail, no difference. Put your bike in 4th or 5th gear, slam your seat down as far as it'll go, and let's get these standing wheelies rolling. We're going to practice the fundamentals of this skill on flat ground, and at the end of the video, I'll show you how to apply it onto an obstacle. But for now, flat ground is the place to be. The most important part of this entire skill is that we need to start with our opposite foot on the top of the pedal stroke. This is the foot that's usually in the back as you're standing on the bike with your pedals level. This is extremely important because in this technique, we want to have our strong foot come around to the top of the pedal stroke as we get into a position that needs the most stability. If you get to that position and you're standing in your opposite stance, you're not going to be in a strong position to continue with stability. But maybe we're getting slightly ahead of ourselves here. To start a standing wheelie, I want you to roll along at a slow speed on flat ground in that 4th or 5th gear, whichever you feel more comfortable in. I usually do my standard wheelies in 5th, so that's what I'm going to use here. My body weight is over the front of the bike, chest over the handlebar. When I'm ready, I'm going to bring my opposite foot to the top of the pedal stroke, then jam down on it as I quickly lean my body weight to the back of the bike. This motion of pushing down and leaning back is going to quickly bring my front wheel up. And as I keep pedaling, my strong foot will come around to the top of the pedal stroke about the same time. At this stage in the technique, I'm standing strong on the bike, ready for the next move. Because my strong foot is now forward, I feel the most stable on the back wheel, and in most cases, I'd be pushing from here up onto a ledge of some sort. But since this is our first time doing this technique, I want you just to let your front wheel drop back down. Repetition is such an important factor when it comes to learning skills. Maybe you totally nailed this move the first time, or maybe you faded to the left or to the right. Hopefully you didn't loop out. If your front wheel didn't come off the ground at all, it meant you didn't push the pedals hard and fast enough, or that the combination with your body movement wasn't substantial enough to get the front wheel off the ground. No matter what happened on your first attempt, I want you to go back and do the same thing 10 times in a row. Film yourself if you can, just to get a better sense of what your body is actually doing with the bike. See how high your front wheel comes off the ground, and see if you're moving your body just as much as you think you are. In most cases, you likely aren't, but that's okay. As you practice, if you start fading to the left or to the right, use your elbows and knees to counterbalance yourself. Look straight ahead instead of at the side you're falling. Rock your feet on the pedal side to side to push the bike where you want it to go. We're just doing a single pedal to start, so there's not too much time to go sideways. In fact, we're never really going to need to do more than one pedal standing up, so once you start feeling confident with this motion, you're most of the way there. There's a good chance that it's going to take you more than 10 tries to get comfortable and consistent with this movement. But if you could sneak a few minutes of practice in before every ride, eventually it will feel a lot more normal and you'll start adjusting to the motion. The best part is that this practice is also going to help train your back wheel balance point, and a wider comfort zone here will eventually help you with bunny hops and all sorts of other skills. When you start to feel like you're ready for the next step with the standing wheelie, I want you to see if you can extend your roll on the back wheel. As we began, we did the single standing pedal and let our front wheel drop. Now that you're locking in the movement, see if you can hold your front wheel up just a little bit longer. You'll notice that your hips play a part in holding the front wheel up in the air for an extra split second, and you'll potentially need to grab your brakes when it's time to bring it back down. The other thing you'll start playing with here is the height of your front wheel. The higher up you can bring it, the longer it'll stay in the air, which will translate to a longer roll on the back wheel. A great way to practice this is to find a line on the ground and use that line as your starting point for the pedaling motion. When you can get your back wheel to cross that line before the front wheel touches down, you're in great shape and ready to move on. Our next step is to start figuring out something that I call pedal timing. This is necessary when we ride up onto features and need to figure out when we should start pedaling with our opposite foot in order to hit everything just right. To start working on pedal timing, you'll need to find a small curb or similar sized obstacle. Roll up to it slowly and test out where you think you need to start the pedaling motion with your opposite foot. My typical rule is to start as far away from the obstacle as the height of the obstacle. So if it's a 1 foot ledge, I'll lift my front wheel about a foot away from that ledge. The best time about doing this pedal timing practice on something as small as a curb is that your wheel should roll over it with any major issues. You'll be going slow, and since it's so small, your wheel should easily roll over it. Since you're also continuing to pedal over the obstacle, it should roll even easier. Eventually, as you get into higher and higher obstacles, you'll need to throw your body weight forward and scoop your pedals to bring up the back wheel. But at this stage of practice, you're fine just rolling over it. The advanced version of this skill is sometimes referred to as a punch or a pedal up. It replaces the bunny hop on the trail in almost every single case. And you just learned all the foundational skills you need to get there. If you want to continue working on that pedal up skill, go check out this video. And don't forget, practice makes progress.